My name.
YouTube. What is up? Today, we're about to learn how to rob a bank. Actually, I saw another video about banks that we're going to watch soon, and then that made me think I want to look up if there's a YouTube video on how to rob a bank, and then I realized, man, the FBI might be on my ass after that.
Name's
But
Kane.
I don't plan to rob a bank, and if I do, I plan to get away with it. So, fuck yeah. You know what I'm saying? Right? I got a plot, right? I got a man, Tijuana. He'll house me. I might not be able to upload this now in case I ever have to use that man in Tijuana. Or am I lying about where he really is? Just know there's a man out there. And he will house me. In this state where there's no extradition laws. State, country, border, a land. Just know there's a man out there. I'm prepared. Are you prepared for the day you need to rob a bank and go off grid? Then again, thinking about it, going off grid after you rob a bank, I mean, how much can you really do? Because I feel like if you have all that money, that's not like you can spend the money. You know what I mean? You're off grid. How are you gonna spend the money? Just, maybe I haven't fully thought this through, but you know, I'm not at the point where I need to rob one just yet. We'll see. Hopefully not. Knock on wood. Just got a new job. Hopefully that's good. Knock on wood. But let's hit the bong so we can learn how this guy robbed a bank. Maybe figure out our own way. Alright, let's get right into it.
Vincent Dyer, and I robbed over 100 banks between 1999 and 2001.
Okay, so see, this guy knows what he's talking about. If we're gonna learn some tips on the tricks on how to rob the bank, it's gonna be from this guy.
This is how crime works. For anyone out there that is watching this and you think you're gonna go commit bank robberies away,
I know. Let's be so dead ass. I know, push came to shove, I could rob a bank. Get away with it for 10 plus years, different story. Different story. But I could rob that motherfucker for sure. Get away with it for maybe probably a year.
I did, or I'm telling you in here, you were gonna find yourself in jail. Leave bank robbery alone.
But I feel like that's the thing with bank robbery. It's more of like it's not if, it's a when. Because, like, you're on the run forever at that point. I don't think there's, like, what's it called? A statute of limitations on bank robbery. Like, I think you're just on the run on that point. And then it's like, you could try to mask up, glove up, and everything, but with today's technology, ain't no fucking way. Right? Whatever you rob, you gotta get out of Dodge. For sure. Like, you're not just casually sitting in the same state or town that you fucking robbed a bank in. You can't.
So one of the things that I would do initially when I walk into a bank is walk in.
See, and he was going mask off. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, bro, especially now, like, this video I think is a couple years old, and then when he was doing this was even before that. Bro, no fucking way. You'd be on every news station so fast. They'd be like, this person robbed a fucking bank. Because nobody robs banks anymore.
And go straight to the merchant teller. Because I always knew that the merchant teller would more than likely have the most amount of currency. We've watched so many movies where people are like, hey, put your hands in the air. I think people naturally go to do that.
Meow. Why he's meowing so much? Bro, he literally just wants my attention to go play. As if I haven't been playing with him for like 2 hours. But yeah, I mean, obviously I think if you're just going into the bank, the teller is where you're going to be able to get the most money. But if you want to be cool, you go to a bank that's got like a safe. You get them to crack the safe.
When they hear, hey, this is a robbery, the reasoning for me asking them to put their hands down or telling them to put their hands down is because you didn't want someone walking past the bank and seeing someone standing in a bank with their hands up or laying on the floor. So it was always just put your head down, keep looking forward. That way, if someone did walk into the bank, they wouldn't even really realize what was going on until they were already in it. And what that would kind of do is it would let me read the temperature of the room. It would.
Now, is he solo bank robbing? Like, is he just doing there, like, no blind spots checking? Like, what if there was just a hero ass nigga that just wanted to, like, tackle him from behind?
Let me see if the people were either very compliant or very slow to move, or if they seemed nervous and scared, then I would kind of tailor how I would express myself after that, trying to be more calming. And, you know, unfortunately, if, you know, things were moving kind of slower, I would probably be a little bit more aggressive to the overall crowd. Checking the temperature, doing that one teller, I knew that one merchant teller, I knew if I decided not to go in the vault.
Oh, so he was cracking vaults. All right, but it wasn't every time. He had discernment. Sometimes he was like, this is a vault crack. Sometimes he was like, nah, I'm going to just take what I can get from the teller.
That I would still have a reasonable, you know, outcome for the payday. That merchant teller, along with the manager, is the person I would have walk me into a vault. And like I said, if they were just a little too afraid or anything, then there are times where, you know, I wouldn't go into the vault. Typically, I pick banks.
I mean, is it that they're too afraid, or they're like low-key staying in the ground, being like, like trying to say no, but they're too pussy to say no, but they're not doing that type shit. You know what I mean?
That were close to merchants. That way, I knew that that bank would more than likely be the banker.
Wait, what did he say? There's two people you knew that what?
Typically, I picked banks that were close to merchants. That way,
Okay.
I knew that that bank would more than likely be the banker for all those merchants that were there. And that would mean that that bank would more than likely have more cash on hand. The other thing was, it all.
That's smart. You go to a place that a lot of restaurants would handle. Okay. See, this is the type of shit you don't think about until you really have to get into the nitty gritty. Like, you rob one bank, you're like, man, this shit was ass. Why this bank got no cash? And then you start being like, wait, this bank gonna have loads of bread.
Always had to be a bank that was relatively close to multiple interstates. And one of the other things was how the bank was set up. Were there multiple ways that I could enter or exit? Like, casing a bank would consist of me watching the employees. And I would always watch to see who looked like they were in the most control. So sometimes I'd case a bank for a day and a half, and then go. You know, if it was a bigger bank, and I would watch the flow. I'd watch the.
But even for a bigger bank, he's saying it's only a day and a half. This is a quick turnaround. You know, I guess you can't really get caught just watching a bank for too long, or else they're gonna get suspicious fast.
The timing of the flow. I'd watch the pickup. I took probably, I don't know, a few weeks, a month off, and just taught myself everything about banks. At that time, gotten a hold of all different types of bank manuals.
So he was just working a regular job, and one day was like, I'm gonna rob a bank. Like, I really wonder what it was like. Was there like a bad day at work? Like, what really flipped the switch that he was like, I'm robbing banks today?
You know, employee manuals, employee guides, everything. Safes, lock safes, time vaults. During my bank robberies, as far as attire would go, I would just always try and fit in whatever element was present. It was always pretty much just dressing down, jeans, a jacket, trying not to stand out too much. I definitely used the crazy glue to protect my fingertips and my palms. I would always wear a pair of glasses, always a baseball cap, and that seemed to cover enough. The mascara would be base.
Bro, see, that's what I mean. I feel like with technology right now, baseball cap and glasses is not enough. Like with this grainy ass footage, yeah, you could kind of be like, I can't really tell what's going on. Bro, right now, if you put that, you would get caught in a 4K image. You'd be like, yeah, I can kind of tell who that is. Like, it wouldn't leave many options for who it could be.
Basically, it depended where I was. If I was in a place where there are more ethnic people, I would typically do a beard. If I was in a place where there were less ethnic people, I would more so sometimes going clean shaven or a really light shave. I would actually look at weather conditions because, of course, in an area where it's going to be raining or overcast, you can layer more. If it was sunny outside, there are a lot more people out. So there's probably more chances for me even to blend in. On a rainy day, though you get to bundle up, you still get to know that there aren't a lot of people out. So people are going to probably be looking at you. In certain cities, you had to account for different times that I would be going into a bank, not getting stuck in a rush hour traffic. Though there were banks that I absolutely would do it rush hour just because it would take longer for law enforcement to get to me if there was a lot of traffic out. So
See, that's what I mean. Like, and then also at this point, does law enforcement know he's a serial bank robber, or do they think like these banks are just getting robbed just by random people?
we've seen in movies
Like, at what point do they realize that it's the same guy going around the country robbing banks?
that cops have this response time of about 3 to 5 minutes. And that's pretty accurate. That is not just Hollywood. So I would park across the street or in some direction where I wasn't alone, standing out by myself. My car wasn't the only one. And I always used a car that would fit in, something that was really typical, that you would just see a lot of. What I would always try and do is make sure that wherever I was parked, that it would not be in view of anyone that would be standing in a bank or immediately outside of a bank. So I always gave myself enough space to get away and then kind of disappear.
So it's like you turn a corner and then like he's gone because he's in the whip just driving away. I feel like that makes sense because then if someone is following you, you have kind of like layers of, transparency or like layers of disappearance, I guess. Does that make sense? But the getaway. This is the part I'm really interested in, honestly. How did he get away?
So when exiting the bank, once I felt I was out of sight, I would turn a corner or something, then I would trot a little bit further once I wasn't in front of a bank trotting. As soon as I'm in my car and my mascara is off, I turn on my radio, roll down my windows, take off my hat, and I'm singing. I've got music on. Cops pass me. I'm looking at them. They're looking at me because what they're actually looking for is the guy that's not looking at them. Listen, when a bunch of cops roll past you, or even fire trucks, what do? We all look. So the one guy they're looking for is the guy who won't look at them.
That's a good point. You know what I mean? Like, you're trying to not draw attention, so everyone else is gonna like, oh, what are they doing? Da, 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 da. You might as well look at them and be like, oh, what's going on?
As they're driving to it, they're looking to see if anybody's trying to ignore
You hit the whole, how you doing?
them personally, typically. How I would end up checking for die packs was different depending on what type of money I took. If it was just the merchant teller,
I didn't even think about that.
then of course that money is
Like, bro, imagine you just get away with a great stash. Like, I got this shit, da da da, da, and then you look at it and just die pack explode all the fuck over it.
Loose, even though it's in stacks, it's still loose. So what I would do is once I got all my mascara and things off and I was set and ready to drive, I would literally put a bag of money next to me and go through it and then throw that money kind of like on the floor. I would get back to my stakeout and I would go through all the money, taking my clothes, making sure they were burned, putting my fingers in solution so I could get the crazy glue off. I would hide the money in several different places, but to be a...
Because I'm just like, you can't really use the money, right? Because it'll get tracked. Or I guess you could. I guess system isn't that crazy. They're going to be able to track every single dollar bill. But, like, bro, I mean, obviously you can't deposit the money. So, yeah, you just have, like, cash stashed everywhere. See, that's what would suck. And then, like, you have to deposit it correctly because, you know, cash can get moldy. So either you got to use it, you know, somewhat quickly, or you have to, like, seal it in some, like, special solution and shit so it doesn't get moldy, and it's a hassle.
A little bit more
That's
specific.
why you can't bury money. People think you can bury money because of, like, movies and shit. You cannot bury money. It will go bad fast.
There was this one place that I had opened up the floor of it. I don't know, at one point there had just millions of dollars in this floor. There were a couple of times I actually put money in like a bank vault, in like a safety deposit box. Wouldn't that have been ironic had there been a bank robbery and it gotten stolen, huh?
That is kind of funny. Like, you stole this money from a bank, so you go and put it in a deposit box. Like, what does a bank manager think when you're just putting straight cash into a deposit box, though? Do people do that? I mean, I guess maybe. I just doesn't feel like a good idea, but maybe. You know, if you got enough money that you're casually getting a safety deposit box to fill with money, it probably, you know, isn't that much of a loss to do, to be fair.
The way I ended up getting into bank robbery, a very, very close person to me, a relative, a sibling, had gotten involved with a criminal organization. There was just no way he was going to get around this debt. You know, it would have been a matter of life or death. You know, had this debt not been paid, taken care of, the person would have lost their life.
It's like, I'm going to make you an offer you cannot refuse. I don't know why you would... I say I don't know why you would take a debt like that, or like take a deal like that, but at the same time, you know, they probably were in a very strenuous circumstance, or that kind of money really made a difference. But also, I'd be working every second trying to get enough money to pay them back. You don't mess with the mob gang.
Those first set of banks that paid off that debt, those 6, though, were a lot less preparation and more desperation. Initially, I felt bank robbery was this victimless crime. I thought it would just be a better crime to commit. I felt like I was taking from an institution versus a person, which I wouldn't have done.
See, I mean, at least he's a criminal with morals. You gotta respect that, a criminal with morals. You know, he's like, I'd steal from an institution, wouldn't steal from a person. Very respectable, honestly.
My first bank,
Robin Hood, for real.
I was literally just looking for any bank. I was going down the freeway and actually had to use the restroom. So I pulled off the freeway. It was at this Calabasas exit. I pulled in there to go to the restroom.
He just, like, on a whim decided, you know what, I want to rob this fucking bank. That's what he said, like, on a whim, he pulled into the bank, I'd use the bathroom, and he was like, you know what, I'm robbing this motherfucker right now.
True. I ended up parking, and right in front of me were 2 banks. There was a Chase, and there was a Wells Fargo. And I sat there for a time period trying to determine which one I should go in, just watching the flow of people. I had this baseball cap and stuff, and I kind of pumped myself up. Had this firearm with me, and I'm heading towards the bank. And as I get towards the bank, two things happen. One, there was this lady who was at the bank that seemed pregnant to me. And it was just like,
Seemed pregnant to me. So he's like, I think she's pregnant, but she could have just been fat as hell. You know what I mean? You never know.
I can't go in there while a pregnant lady's in there. She gets scared and, the baby's harmed. So I was like, well, I kind of turned back. And as I went to turn back, there was this car window right there. And I look in the car window and I notice, oh my God, I can totally see myself. Like I can make myself out. So I went to this store that was miles down the road. I ended up getting this backpack. And I also got some mascara and some crazy glue to put on my fingertips as not to leave any fingerprints, because I didn't want to walk up to the bank with gloves on, which is, to me, pretty obvious. It was a sunny afternoon. There was that cord while I was at this store that just kind of struck me like, what if someone tries to stop me? It made me purchase a replica, like an air gun or something like that, but it looked very, very authentic. So I purchased that and decided to use that in the robbery instead. Realizing that I probably needed a bigger bag, so I ended up grabbing this backpack. I realized that the backpack had these double zippers that I could partially open that would make it like a perfect sack that would be able to put things in, still have another hand free. Hence the name Kangaroo Bandit. When
I mean, I feel like this is all stuff that would have worked for a bank robbery. Like I said, back in the day, before they had the technology they do now. Now I feel like you do a lot of the stuff he's doing the way he's describing it. You're getting caught up that same night, bro. Especially if you're just chilling at a place that like you own or like you're known to be at. Yeah, you're done.
my consciousness started to awaken again. I think I could no longer hide behind the life and death imminent danger that was there before. I know if I would have kept doing it, I would have got caught. When I decided to turn myself in, of course I let my family know first, and then my attorney and we contacted the FBI. And at first they were like, yeah, oh, absolutely.
Said his attorney and we contacted the FBI. Yeah, no, that's how they get you, man. They make you think. They're like, oh, just talk, we'll help you out. And then they still get you in for life somehow. We got you. We know the death penalty, though, guys. Come on.
Absolutely. What I did not know at that time was someone had already kind of given them my name. I contacted them on a Wednesday and had planned on meeting them on a Friday. And instead, they were like, no, we're not waiting on you to come in. They did this huge raid on my home on a Thursday night. But the only way they were able to take me in is if they found something on that search warrant, which they weren't able to find. Before he left, though, he and I had this conversation, he being the FBI agent. So I told him, I'm going to take some time to go spend with my family. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to turn myself in. And I was letting him know, don't worry, I'm not going to run. I'm not going to bolt, man. I'm going to keep my word. I told you I'd keep my word and turn myself in. And I ended up doing that. So when he saw me and I saw him after.
He's realer than me, because I'm not going to lie, I would have bolted. I would have been gone 3 countries away.
I had greeted my family. I actually walked up to him and we kind of embraced. We actually hugged each other. I surrendered. It was like, okay, now I begin my life. Well, I did not understand back in that time the psychological tolls that the victims suffered, the heavy cost I was having.
They bullshit now. The psychological toll of someone having to go through a bank robbery, whatever, it's not that deep. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to ever go through one, you know, knock on wood, but I feel like people be overreacting a little bit. Being like, oh my god, I'm gonna be traumatized the rest of my life because of a bank robbery. Unless they're really on top of you, like singling you out, I feel like you're good, man. I'm not gonna cap. But we have learned a lot of ways that we could get into the bank, but sadly, I think the really only strategy right now, EMP. Bro, we get a portable EMP, we can rob any bank. Simple like that. But this is a cool little video. As always, if you're watching on the YouTube video after, come check our stream sometime. Let me know anything else you might want to react to. And I'll thank you guys for watching.